Can I bear to see the laziness, the slothfulness, the indifference of ministers and of churches without speaking? No, there must be a protest entered, and we enter it now. O Church of God, thou hast a name to live, and art dead. Thou art not watchful. Awake, awake, arise from the dead, and Christ shall give thee light. The third charge which John brought against Sardis was that they did not look to the things that remained and were ready to die. I take it that this may relate to the poor feeble saints, the true children of God, who were sorrowing, mourning, and groaning in their midst, who were so oppressed with sorrow on account of the state of Sardis that they were ready to die. And what does the church do now? Do the shepherds go after those that are wounded and sick, and those that are weary? Do they carry the lambs in their bosom, and gently lead those that are with young? Do they see poor distressed consciences, and speak to those who feel their deadness in trespasses and sins? Yes, but how do they speak? They tell them to do things they cannot do, to perform impossible duties, instead of strengthening the things that remain and are ready to die. In how much contempt are the truly newborn children of God held in these times! They are called peculiar men, scorned as antinomians, hissed at as being oddities, high doctrine men who have departed from the usual mode of pulling down God's word to men's fancies. They are called bigots, narrow-minded souls, and their creed is set down as dry, hard, rough, severe Calvinism. God's gospel called hard, rough, and severe? The things for which our fathers died are now called infamous things. Mark whether, if you stand out prominently in the truth, you will not be abhorred and scorned. If you go into a village and hear of poor people who are said to be doing a good deal of mischief, are they not the people who understand most of the gospel? Go and ask the minister who are the persons that he most dislikes, and he will say, "We have a nasty lot of antinomians here." What does he mean by that? Men who love the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and will have it, and are therefore called a nasty set of antinomians. Ah, we have lost what once we had. We do not now strengthen the things that remain and are ready to die. They are not looked after as they ought to be, not beloved, not fostered. The salt of the earth are now the offscouring of all things. Men whom God has loved and who have attained a high standing in godliness, these are the men who will not bow the knee to Baal, and who therefore are cast into the fiery furnace of persecution and slander. O Sardis, Sardis, I see thee now. Thou hast defiled thy garments. Thank God there are a few who have not followed the multitude to do evil, and who shall walk in white, for they are worthy. Another charge which God has brought against the church is that they were more careless about the things which they heard. He says, "Remember, therefore, how thou hast received and heard, and hold fast, and repent." If I am wrong upon other points, I am positive that the sin of this age is impurity of doctrine and laxity of faith. Now you know you are told every Sunday that it does not signify what you believe, that all sects and denominations will be saved, that doctrines are unimportant things, that as to the doctrines of God's grace, they are rather dangerous than otherwise, and the less you inquire about them, the better. They are very good things for priests, but you common people cannot understand them. Thus they keep back a portion of the gospel with cautious reserve. But having studied in the devil's new Jesuitical college, they understand how to call themselves particular Baptists and then preach general doctrines, to call themselves Calvinists and preach Arminianism, telling the people that it does not signify whether they preach damnable heresies instead of the truth of God. And what do the congregation say? Well, he is a wise man and ought to know. So you are going back into as bad a priestcraft as ever. Presbyter has become priest written large, and minister has become priest in many a place, because persons do not search for themselves and endeavor to get hold of the truth of God. It is everywhere proclaimed that we are all right, that though one says God loved his people from before the foundation of the world, and the other that he did not, though one says that God is changeable and turns away from his people, and the other that he will hold them fast to the end, Though one says that the blood of Christ avails for all for whom it was shed, and the other that it is inefficacious for a large number of those for whom he died, though one says that the works of the law are in some measure necessary, or at any rate that we must endeavor to improve what we have, and then we shall get more, while the other says that by grace ye are saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God, yet both are right. A new age this, when falsehood and truth can kiss each other. New times these, when fire and water can become friendly. Glorious times these, when there is an alliance between heaven and hell. Falsehood and error are linked hand in hand. All we are brethren is the cry now, though God knows we are of vastly different families. Ah, now who cares for the truth, except a few narrow-minded bigots, as they are called? Aye, laxity of doctrine is the great fault now. We solemnly protest against it. You may fancy that I am raising an outcry about nothing at all. Ah, no, my anxious spirit sees the next generation. What will that be? This generation, Arminianism. What next? Pelagianism. And what next? Popery. And what next? I leave you to guess. The path of error is always downward. We have taken one step in the wrong direction. God knows where we shall stop. If there had not been sturdy men in ages gone by, the Lord would not have left to us a remnant even now. All grace must have died, and we had become like unto Gomorrah and unto Sodom. O church of the living God, awake, awake! Once more write truth upon thy banner, stamp truth upon thy sword, and for God and for his word, charge home. Ye knights of truth, charge home! Spare not, but slay! Let error die before you, until truth and truth alone shall sit king over the whole world. But now I have lifted up the whip, I must have another lash. Look on any section of the church you like to mention, not excepting that to which I belong, and let me ask you whether they have not defiled their garments. Look at the Church of England. Her articles are pure and right in most respects, yet see how her garments are defiled. She hath made the Queen her head instead of God. She bows before the state, and worships the golden calf that is set up before her. Look at her abominations, her pluralities, her easy-living bishops doing nothing. Look at her ungodly clergymen in the country, living in sin. The churchman who does not know that his church has defiled her garments is partial to his mother, as indeed he ought to be, but he is too partial to speak the truth. But good churchmen themselves weep, because what I say is true. Then look at John Wesley's body. Have not they defiled their garments? See how they have lately been contending with a despotism as accursed as any that ever brooded over the slaves in America. See thou how they have been rent in sunder, and how imperfect in doctrine they are too after all, professedly at least, not holding the truth of God. Look into what denomination you please, Independent or Baptist or any other. Have they not all defiled their garments in some way or other? Look at the churches around, and see how they have defiled their garments by giving baptism to those for whom it was never intended, and degrading a holy church ordinance to become a mere sop with which they feed their babes. And see how they have taken away Christ's honor, how they have taken the bread that was meant for the children, and cast it to ungodly persons. Look at our own denomination. See how it has deserted the leading truths of the gospel. For proof hereof, I refer you to hundreds of our pulpits. O Church of God, I am but a voice crying in the wilderness, but I must cry still, How art thou fallen from heaven, thou son of the morning? How art thou fallen? Remember how thou hast received and heard, and hold fast and repent. If thou dost not watch, thy master will come upon thee as a thief, and thou shalt not know in what hour he will come unto thee.